As you said, we're moving backwards in so many areas. How do we combat this?
Well, there are two things you have to do. One, you've got to get African Americans an opportunity to participate in the U.S. economic system. That means jobs. You've got to give African Americans the other element of success in this country. That means access to capital. And I propose two things to promote both of those issues in terms of a fair chance for economic success. One is a version of the NFL's Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule of the NFL for football owners, it said before you hire a coach or a GM, you must, under penalty of a fine, interview an African-American candidate who qualified to be a coach or a manager.
You didn't have to hire him, but you at least had to give him a shot.
So I did an adaptation of that for corporations. Before you hire a vice president above, interview 2 minority candidates. Before you issue a contract for a vendor or for services, commit yourself on a voluntary basis, unlike the NFL rule, to at least interview 2 qualified minority companies. I'm launching a site called OpsPlace. OpsPlace is designed to aggregate minorities looking for jobs, minority vendors looking to be considered for opportunities, and create our own version of a monsters LinkedIn kind of site targeted for minority and African Americans to answer the age-old question that a lot of white businessmen tell me, Bob, I can't find talented minorities. I can't find a talented minority contractor. Answer is, you're not looking. The other thing is we've got to come up with some alternatives to so-called payday lending.
Some access to effective rates of interest.
Access to lower cost interest, and I'm looking at that as an option. And the reason African Americans go to payday lenders when their car breaks down or the refrigerator goes out or the roof is leaking on after a storm, because they have no way to borrow. You mentioned the economic statistics, the income statistics. You can't go to your cousin, you can't go to the local church. The community doesn't have it.
Because they're broke too.
They're broke also. And so the issue is we've got to provide a viable alternative so minority Americans, and not just minority, but lower income, middle income Americans can go to places or borrow within the workforce. Why couldn't companies set up an arrangement where you can borrow against your paycheck? And instead of paying the next week, pay 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later if you got a good employment record. And we're looking at all those alternatives to increase access to capital, to increase financial information and financial literacy for financial well-being.
The wealth gap between white and African American families has quadrupled in the past 30 years. According to the Census Bureau, white households have a median net worth that is 10 times higher than black households. It's just as bad about income. A study by the group United for a Fair Economy says that for every dollar a white person earns in income, African Americans earn only 57 cents. I've been involved in the financial literacy movement my entire professional career, now pushing 25 years, and the data that I just cited is very apparent to everyone who pays attention, that the minorities in this country are not doing as well financially as white America.
I gave a speech about 2 years ago, and I said there's a wealth gap tsunami that's threatening the very livelihood of African American families. Probably 60% of African Americans today will not attain the wealth of their parents. And when you look at that and you see a regression backward in terms of African American wealth and African American net income, it creates all kinds of social problems for this country.
Right.
We're going to a world of have and have-nots. And the people who have will begin to dislike, distrust, and take it out on the people who don't. And we can be in a situation where we can be, as the Kerner Commission report said, a permanent society of separates and unequal.
You didn't begin your career focusing on financial literacy issues at all, let alone in the African American community, but as you've achieved unprecedented success in your careers and you've become an American icon yourself, I think you've had an opportunity to look back and realize not everyone has enjoyed your spectacular lifestyle and results.
No, you're right, Rick, but I started out with very humble beginnings, son of a working-class parents, one of 10 kids, and as I like to say, quoting, Pearl Bailey, I've tried poor and I've tried rich, and I like rich better.
So how is it that you were able to build yourself up from your own bootstraps when others aren't as fortunate?
Well, there are a couple of reasons why people become successful. The first and foremost is a work ethic. You've got to believe in yourself. You got to have a commitment to work hard to achieve. The second is you got to have people around you who will motivate you, who will guide you, who will encourage you. And I think the third is probably a little bit of luck, grace of God, however you want to define it. But there's got to be something else there other than your own self. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a visionary. I believe fundamentally that there's a business solution to every social problem. Companies just have to engage in giving minorities a shot, a fair chance, an opportunity. We've also got to focus on the African American community in terms of financial behavior. Less consumption, more savings, more investments.
It's a refreshing point of view, and I really appreciate your taking the time to share it. Bob Johnson, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rick.